Planning Board, and if I can find my agenda, I can tell you what day it is. It's March 13th. This is our 18th meeting of the fiscal year 2014. I'm Alex Whiteside, the chairman, and the other members and people at the table should introduce themselves.
Randy Lynch, member.
Emily Ennis, member.
Michael Kelly, member.
We anticipate that the town planner, Bill Clark, will join us, and we anticipate that Ed Duffy, the fifth member of the board, will join us. We're going to defer consideration of the past minutes. We're going to meet again on March 27th and April 10th and April 24th.
On April 10th.
But she is a cold, Bill. You may
not
want
wanna
to
sit
sit on the other
You
side.
might want to sit a couple of chairs down. Yeah. On April 10th, we have a master plan roundtable scheduled for April 10th,
All right.
because I had to give up a Thursday, so I don't know if you
So
want
we're going to
do April
meet
3rd.
on Wednesday,
Okay?
the 9th? What do you
April
think,
9th.
people?
Yes, good.
You're changing the 10th to the 9th.
What do you think? Okay?
Or you could have a joint meeting with the roundtable, but I
No,
suspect we'll have a lot of business,
Well,
so.
we're going to defer to the roundtable and meet on the 9th, Ed.
Good.
Can I ask you a question on that one?
Of course.
The temple is ready to file their subdivision plan,
Yeah.
and it would be,
It would be Mr. Gordon who is ready there because it's his property, isn't it?
I just know the application is ready to be
I
filed.
would suspect it was Mr. Gordon.
Okay. It's, they wish to go that first meeting in April, which would be the 9th.
9th now, yeah. It
Yeah.
was a 10th, but because of Emily's,
No, the towns.
I think
master plan,
that's,
not
I
mine.
think that if the plan gets filed and if it gets properly advertised, we can consider the subdivision.
Okay.
Under the subdivision control law, it has to do with the division of land. It has nothing to do with what the land gets used for thereafter. All right. Now we're going to hear from the master plan consultants, who are going to give us a brief update on their progress to the non-negotiable deadline of, what is the October?
The regularly scheduled town meeting in October. There's a
First
precise
session,
name.
first session.
Yes, there you go.
Okay.
So can
That's the
I,
non-negotiable deadline for the master plan being completed.
right.
So, tell us how you're doing and,
So can I introduce Daphne Politis and Angus Jennings, two members of our consultant team?
oh yes, let me turn this over to Emily, who
You
is
don't have to turn it
our-
over, I just wanted to let people know who they are.
All right.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for this opportunity to give you a progress report. When I saw the snow this morning, I worried because the last time we were scheduled to speak to you, it was snowing and it was canceled, so I was glad to see it melted.
We canceled. You were ready to go, undoubtedly.
We were ready to go.
Okay.
So,
We're ready to go tonight.
so we just wanted to give you a quick update of what we've been up to. As you know, the phase one of this process started last year, and there was another team that put together a preliminary vision and a set of goals, and that was our starting point. And we quickly got to work on trying to understand that and reorganize it, restructure it so that it's more consistent with moving forwards towards an implementation plan. So we took in all the input and that was our foundation from phase one and built upon it by having a series of stakeholder interviews, and those varied from department heads, agencies, individuals involved in all kinds of committees and boards, and we've had almost 30 to date, and we have several more planned. In addition to that, we held our first public forum on March 1st, where we also shared our preliminary findings of our inventory. So we've conducted an inventory of existing resources, and those are collected in the buckets that the state mandates. And those are housing, economic development, public facilities and services, natural resources, open space and recreation, historic and cultural resources, transportation and circulation, and land use. So we have developed our preliminary findings. Those are summarized on a two-page summary sheet per the master plan element. That's what how the state refers to them. And they may be found on the Tumblr site that Angus will tell you a little bit about.
Sure. So my name's Angus Jennings. I'm a planning consultant, and I am a member of the team. I'm responsible for the housing, economic development, and land use components. Very pleased to be here and pleased to be working with Daphne and with the town of Milton. It's been very good process so far, and we've got a lot of work ahead, and we're looking forward to that. So what I wanted to do is present the what our key takeaways were from the March 1st forum. And for those of you who were there, you know that it was a very interactive process, and one of the center points of the public involvement was a series of goal sheets or goal stations that were set up around the room. And it was organized around the plan elements that Daphne described, and what we had done is within each of those elements, we took the goals that were articulated in the Phase 1 plan. We supplemented that with ideas that both had come out of the Master Plan Committee meetings and that we as consultants had put on the table. And then everyone in the workshop, and we had, I think, 130 people, give or take, was given dots, and they put dots on what they felt was most important. So I'm going to review briefly the top 10 issues, and this is a non-scientific survey, but it was it's generally, in our experience, a good way to take the temperature, and so you can tell us if you think we're on the right track. The top dot getter was bicycle and pedestrian improvements, and that was far and away the most. The second was to provide affordable and mixed use housing in locations that can support it, ensure that 40B developments are supported by impact assessments, and complete the housing production plan. The third item was to create a community senior youth center, either a new building or a better use of existing facilities, and support expanded use of the library. The fourth item was pass the Community Preservation Act. The fourth was to create incentives to preserve historic structures and their settings, including their aesthetic conversion to multifamily. The fifth was to create a neighborhood-oriented services, ensure new development does not negatively impact neighborhoods, keep commercial development small, in parenthetical, convenience stores, coffee shops, small grocer, etc., and notify neighborhoods early in the process. Locate any such development within walking distance of homes. Seventh was to increase community awareness of, enjoyment of, and access to the Neponset Riverfront, including cleaning, vista enhancement, and expansion of river trail bikeway. The eighth was to implement traffic calming. Ninth, create mixed-use districts. And 10th was to create a partnership with MDC and DCR. Now, we have dozens of others with lots of good ideas, but as you know, governance is largely an exercise in prioritization, because there's lots of great ideas, and the challenge for any community is how to take the limited resources between volunteers, boards and committees, staff, partnerships with other agencies, and allocate those in a strategic way to actually get things done. So as Daphne presented, the implementation plan is really what we will work toward over the course of the next 6 to 8 months, and that's something we'll be working very closely with department heads, with boards and committees, and really, frankly, with anyone who tells us they want to be part of the implementation plan, because to get something done is going to take a real team effort.
And so along that vein, what our next steps include holding a series of roundtables. One will be with the town department heads to sound out some of these ideas and to start to understand what the existing resources are, what the capacity is, and what their priorities are in terms of moving forward. Another is with area institutions to see if we can align the town and their visions and see if there can be further collaboration along those lines. And then we've also identified 3 additional themes that really group these priorities as Angus has laid them out. And the first one we are calling Healthy Milton. And Healthy Milton is really about health and wellness and sustainability. It's healthy community as well as healthy residents. And this is becoming more and more a part of planning, and the Center for Disease Control is providing additional funding for these efforts. And a lot of communities in Massachusetts are taking advantage of that. So we're bringing together at the table all kinds of people that are interested in the walking and biking, which by far was the #1 area of interest amongst the residents that were participating. And we also are talking about the Health and Wellness Committee, Parks and Recreation, the Council on Aging. So bringing together all the parties that would be interested in promoting health and wellness in Milton on a variety of levels and in a variety of ways. The other area is housing and neighborhoods, and under that, we talk about healthy aging in place and providing a wide range of housing opportunities, as well as for different places in the life cycle, but also different socioeconomic levels. We talk about using and preserving the historic homes and the large estates, and how providing more housing how it can be consistent with preserving character, which is an area that people are really interested in Milton, and preserving Milton character, further defining it and making it operational and using design guidelines and design review. And the third roundtable theme that we identified was creating vibrant mixed-use districts. And so looking at the existing commercial areas and making those mixed-use, making them more walkable and bikeable, looking at the parking, the way it's managed, the way it can be improved, and just improving those areas aesthetically, as well as making them more vital in terms of the kinds of uses that are there. So those are the 5 really main areas that we're going to be progressing on our next steps. At the same time, though, we are continuing to talk to individual stakeholders, and we are continuing a conversation online. So Angus, would you like to talk about our online conversation?
Sure. So we've got, the town website has a link right from the homepage to master plan resource page, and that has some background materials that people may be interested in. In addition to that, we felt, and the committee felt, it was very important to have a more dynamic online presence. So what we've created is, it's a website that you can reach by going to Milton Master Plan, all one word, .tumblr without an E, so .tumblr.com. And that's more of a blog type setup, so it provides us the opportunity to get materials up there more quickly, and it provides a more dynamic give and take type online experience. And then I also want to publicly recognize the terrific support we've gotten from the Milton media, including the My Town Matters and Frank Schroth, as well as the Milton Times. Both have been very helpful to date and have committed to do so throughout the process. So that's certainly been a terrific supplement to what we can do in getting the word out.
What about Milton Cable?
Oh, and Milton Cable.
Who filmed part
Shout
of
out
the
to
forum. So,
Yes.
I mean,
Indeed.
Absolutely.
Indeed. Yeah, and actually, I'll say that as we've talked about
the
within the committee.
executive director just left, so.
Okay. Once we get through the roundtables, when we'll have that much more feedback, and we'll have the roundtables specifically on the housing and the neighborhoods are really going to get into some neighborhood-specific issues, and especially on the economic development. And we recognize that the development opportunities are very limited in the town, so looking very strategically and most importantly, taking advantage of the wealth of knowledge that people in town have about the specifics, what you've looked at, what has worked, what hasn't. We have reviewed collectively all of the prior plans, community development plan, prior housing plans, and so forth, but getting those key stakeholders around the table and getting the benefit of their experience, we're going to have a lot more insight. So we've talked with the committee about, as a subsequent phase, maybe as we get into May, doing some in-studio interviews on different subjects in the master plan, which will allow us to go into that much more depth.
We were hoping to do, say, 1 minute, 30-second segments that then could run throughout the summer in between shows.
Similar
things
to
like
what the
that.
Milton Times is doing. Yeah,
Exactly,
that's-
so.
That's very good.
And just to be clear about the purpose of the roundtables, it's not just to continue having more input. It's really bringing together people who have an interest in these areas as well as expertise. So it's trying to identify specific strategies that will work in Milton specifically. Because we've worked in a large number of communities, and we could just plop down, the state of the art best practice, but we really want to make sure that these are valuable and useful to Milton. And the other purpose of the roundtables is to bring together a cross-section of individuals who might be working in parallel on similar issues, but it's an opportunity for public-private partnerships as well as public-public, private-private. So it's really trying to form partnerships around moving forward. So it's trying to build capacity as well as plan at the same time. And it has worked in other communities quite successfully, so we hope it will here as well. So we would really love your support moving forward.
So if I can just add a couple of things to that. The first roundtable is March 25th at Tucker School at 7 o'clock at night. It'll run for about 2 hours, 7 to 9. So, and we'll have childcare available for parents who'd like to come. That will be on Healthy Milton. And Healthy Milton, in addition to the things that Daphne said, includes things like access to our incredible natural resources. It includes issues of traffic in neighborhoods that might be preventing people from walking, especially, or biking, especially children. On April 10th at Cunningham Hall, we're going to have the Vibrant Mixed Use. And that, again, will run from 7 to 9. That's going to look pretty much, as Daphne said, at our current business districts and what we can do with them. And then the housing and neighborhoods will be on April 15th. We expect, because this will include issues that have come up fairly.
That's Passover.
We've already, we've already.
Second Seder night.
We had a problem because we were running into school vacations, so we'll see. It's already been published, but we'll see what we can do. So part of it is this time of year, so many things are happening, getting space, but thank you for letting us know that, and we'll see what we can do. That third one, we're expecting quite a few people because it will also cover things like 40Bs, of which we have a number of developments coming in, and letting people have more information about that, and also cover an issue that has been very much on people's minds over the last few years, which is existing commercial in neighborhood areas. So we're expecting quite a crowd for that, and we hope people who over the last few years have been interested in these subjects will come and listen to experts and give their input. And we'll announce, if we can change the date, we'll announce that, and also the location, because we realize we're going to have a larger location than we'd originally planned.
Right. Well, I have, if you want a brief comment, I'll give a brief comment. Bicycle and pedestrian seems to work directly into traffic calming. You've got to, you've got to calm the traffic so that people can bike, and I think that's a good one. The affordable housing mixed-use development, mixed use should be mix of housing types as well as mixed commercial. I mean, the mix of housing types is one of the great big issues that we've actually already referred a lot of questions about how the town should best use condominiums and the type of condominium development that should be allowed, and where. Historic structures, once again, can work directly into the housing types. And then new development of, look at the district, see what you see. I think that the AA district at 80,000 square feet and 200 feet of frontage needs to be looked at. Not
service
necessarily make it into section C, but it's, you know, you have two of those lots, you've got a 40B development lot. And that's not a good situation. Yeah.
I think the reason for the 2-acre zoning is because it was all septic systems out there, and they just wanted to make sure that the property had enough of
Exactly.
leaching. So-
Exactly, but in
sewer
some
would have to be brought up.
towns, they have them at 60,000 square foot lots. We should consider it, because a number of developers have indicated that developing in a AA area they could make more from 40B than just by doing it in the traditional way, and that's not a competitive situation. So I guess those are my comments. Keep up, we look forward to working with you on all these things.
Thank you, and we look forward to working with you, so.
Anyone else? Board, people?
Just one other thing, the forum on March 1st, obviously our consultants did a great job putting it together, but I'd also like to recognize the members of the Master Plan Committee who worked as facilitators. They gave up a significant amount of their Saturday morning, not just to be there during the event, but to help us set up and clean up. So I would like to thank that committee collectively.
All right,
We'd
fine.
like to thank them as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is anyone here for citizens speak on a matter that is not going to be covered on the agenda? Seeing no one, we will pass by citizens speak. Now, we're going to go to our continued public hearing.
Get that A&R out of the way.
Yeah, let's do that.
This is the 92 Forest Street. Yes,
72.
92.
I saw 100 next to 92.
92 is next to 100, sir. Correct.
And 79 Hillside is next to 93, which is next to 100, and
Well, no, I was just wondering why 100 was,
you mean it was even?
it looked like it was, yeah, see right here, plan of land for 92 and 100, it looks like you're dealing with 100 too.
Okay. I guess we're not. I guess we are.
Well, we'll find out, because they'll tell us.
Well, there's the plan, okay.
I can explain.
Okay, we'll do.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members, Bill Clark. Don Rosa, professional surveyor from Randolph. I'm sitting here with Mike Pellegri, the owner of number 92 Forest Street. On the plan, Mr. Chairman, he owns lot 42. Mr. Benway, next door neighbor, the adjacent property owner, is currently lot 50, as depicted on the plan. We're here this evening to hopefully secure the endorsement of the board on this A&R plan. What happened here is that on 92 Forest Street, Mr. Pellegri's property, the building, as you see in the 50 scale below, and also there's a 20 scale a little further up the top for clarification, was built over the property line and somewhat rotated. This was done years back, and as Mike asked me to do a survey of the property, this was discovered by me probably, let's see, that was back in July of 2013. Anyway, being that it's registered land, in order for us to hopefully reconfigure the lot lines in and around the existing structure and make it conforming, Mr. Benway has agreed to sell a portion of land known as Lot 72, which is 1,193 square feet. I see no zoning deficiencies, and in fact, I've been to see the building commissioner, Joe Prondak, a few times. We've determined that a 15-foot side setback is the required. I indicated that I recommended to Mike Pellegri, my client, that we go 15 and a half feet, in my opinion, never set it to the minimum offset. So we've created a new lot line, or reconfigured that lot line, with the blessing of Mr. Benway, once again, number 100 Forest Street, to allow us, or allow Mike to purchase this Lot 72. Lot 72, as you know, this being registered land, I've already secured the lot numbers, so if this is endorsed, it would be known as Lot 72 on the most current plan that we file with the Mass Land Court. This being registered land, as I say, must be filed with the court after, hopefully, you endorse the plan. So having said all that, I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. I hopefully have explained it well enough, but I certainly would be happy to explain further.
The land court really should not have created Lot 51, which is really part of Lot 42, is it not?
No, well, actually, if you look at the current decree plans, the J and the M plan, they have them as two distinct lots.
Well, I'm sure they do.
They do.
But they're owned in common, right?
They are indeed.
And used in common. And I guess there's nothing we can do about the land court, but they're simply putting a little area of land around the garage, and it's a pretty complicated plan, but a pretty simple, a pretty simple result. And I think that I think it looks great.
Thank you.
What does everyone else think?
My only concern was on the setback, and you've covered that.
Yes, 15 and a half. I spoke
Exactly.
with Mr. Prondak, and the issue is, and it's detailed up in the detail,
Yeah.
existing garage, if we have an average height from the ground to the ridge,
Uh-huh.
so we measured from the gable end in the front and in the back,
Okay.
say the north and the south wall, if it averages more than 20 feet, 20 feet or less would be a 10-foot side setback. In this particular case, we averaged 24, so it's 15.
So I would entertain, without any further questions from the board, a motion to authorize our town planner, Mr. Clark, to endorse this plan as not requiring subdivision approval. And we've got a motion.
Second.
We've got a second. Do we have a discussion? Do we have a vote? Aye. Okay, that's it. Mr. Clark will endorse the plan, and
Thank you.
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Bill, how does that work? Do I leave them, can you endorse them out, leave it with you? Can you do it now, and we'll take it out? We'll do it in the other room, okay?
Boy, that's service.
Boy,
Okay, Bill, give me those documents you have that we're going to, no, if we're going to get into the zoning and we're going to do the nursery article last, we might as well pass these out and give the people waiting to, yeah, something
Oh,
to
yeah,
do.
that's a good idea.
Something to do while the long hours. It shouldn't be long. And I see we have,
I think we have copies, Bill, so. Yep.
Yeah, him.
does the warrant committee want to come up and join us, or are you happy back there?
I'm happy back here, and we have the meetings before.
All right. The main event, exactly.
It's going to be boxing?
This is, it may. This is our continued public hearing on the zoning bylaw articles, and we're going to do the nursery bylaw last because it's probably going to take longest, and we want the warrant committee to be able to hear what we're suggesting. The reformatting of the zoning bylaws is a ministerial, it's creating an index for the zoning bylaws. That's a good thing to do. Let's recommend to the warrant committee that they approve this.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Second.
This is the new index?
Okay? Discussion.
It's like somebody did,
Yes.
it's like somebody did a lot of good work. That being, who?
Bill and me.
I'll pat him on the back.
Bill and me.
Looks good, Al.
Okay, good. It is actually going to be quite helpful. All right, all in favor of recommending passage? Aye.
All right.
Now, we can do the cluster development. And today, you see, you've got this town farm preliminary subdivision plans, and the only reason for this is that Pulte is concerned that they may have to grandfather the zoning by filing a preliminary plan.
We wondered what those were. There was some discussion before you came
On
in.
the agenda though.
What? No, this is not this, they haven't filed this. They haven't filed this, and in fact, they wouldn't file this. They're going to probably file a different type of preliminary plan, and it has to be signed by the trustees because it's the trustees' land. So this is something that you can look at and realize that Pulte would like to grandfather the current zoning, but they may, if the new zoning passes, they may use it. One of their concerns is how to provide the 2 units of affordable housing. And there is a plan to use one of the buildings on the town farm for a duplex as affordable housing, for 2 units of affordable housing. The Pulte development would continue to be 23 clustered homes off a driveway, all opening off Unquity Road. But they said that, I showed them some language I had I put together to grandfather the zoning for them. If they choose to go under the old zoning and not produce affordable housing, that's basically their right. But they indicate that they probably would prefer to proceed under the new zoning and produce 2 units of affordable housing. So
Under the old zoning, how many houses would they be
23.
allowed? 23, okay.
23 is, so we're just keeping the number
They
as,
basically have 23 acres or 20 acres?
it's basically 23 acres, 20 acres. They can, the contract with the selectmen calls for 23 houses.
Which is the quantity of land they have divided by 40,000 square feet gets them
Well, basically.
23.
Basically, they have to have a measuring plan to show that they could fit, but I've seen a measuring plan, and it's not the greatest plan in the world, but they do come up with 23 houses. Changing the cluster bylaw, it hasn't been used, I wrote it 20 years ago,
And I voted with you.
and it hasn't
My
been
first
used.
thing when I got elected
It
25
has-
years ago.
It hasn't been used since then.
No carrots.
Not once.
No carrots,
No
not
carrots.
once, not once. And there are opportunities these days which should not be allowed to pass. I mean, for instance, we recently heard that the land behind the DPW, that the Kingstons had a restriction on the land they sold saying no commercial development, and there's a question whether or not a 40B is a commercial development. An apartment house may be a commercial development. And so having this opportunity of putting a group of houses in there might be an attractive alternative for the developer. Similarly, on St. Pius, where they've been talking condos, cluster with a couple of extra houses might be something that they would consider. The Hamilton subdivision up on Hillside Street, which is in a AA zone, he's indicated that the 5 houses that you could get under conventional, six houses with the A&R lot, with the conventional zoning wouldn't be enough, but if you could produce fit in 8 houses, 7 or 8 houses? Who knows? The Carberry land, 23 acres off of Canton Avenue, the opportunity for a cluster is just a good opportunity. It's hopefully they will look at it and not just do a conventional subdivision. I know when we subdivided the Carberry property, first time, no one was happy about doing it. And it was then, the 55-lot subdivision never was built, and that was a long time ago. In any event, the cluster bylaw really needs these revisions, and I would like to recommend, for the board to recommend to the warrant committee that they adopt this with a Pulte rider. And the Pulte rider would go something like this, but I would also like the board to be able to, or to authorize me to iron it out with Pulte. But it would be on these topics, something along these lines. The amendments to subsection J, approved by town meeting in May 2014, shall not apply to cluster development of a parcel of land which is subject to a purchase and sale agreement dated before July 1, 2013, if that agreement provides for cluster development of the land pursuant to subsection J. With respect to cluster development of such a parcel of land subject to such an agreement, the provisions of subsection J without the 2014 amendment shall apply, provided that the purchaser under the agreement may elect to be subject to subsection J as amended. Such an election shall be made in writing in the application for a special permit and shall be irrevocable. In the event of such an election, an adjacent parcel of land of not less than 20,000 square feet containing an historic building may be treated as part of the cluster development for zoning purposes, in order to permit conversion of the building to 2 units of housing eligible for inclusion on the subsidized housing inventory, in satisfaction or partial satisfaction of the requirement for SHI eligible housing in paragraph 6, after the planning board is consulted with the historical commission. And Pulte is interested in converting the existing building. What is it used for, Bill? Is it a house?
Is the house now?
It's a house. Converting it into a duplex for affordable housing. The trustees are interested. It hasn't been worked out, but this would give it a zoning basis if it could be worked out. This zoning amendment would allow Pulte to use the new bylaw and provide the 2 units of affordable housing required by the new bylaw, in addition to the 23 by doing a duplex.
The 2, because they're getting 1 for every 325,000 square feet?
No, it's 10% of the housing over 10.
On the original.
This is on the new.
On the new.
There's no affordable housing in the original. So this would, yes, Bill?
No, the house that you were talking about was previously occupied, and it, because of lead issues, the family that was in there moved out.
Okay.
This would retrofit that existing building, and it is a historic building.
And the trustees have,
Complete
the
control.
trustees of the Governor Stoughton Trust have indicated that this seems like a good use of this building, and
If this building becomes part of the cluster development,
it would. no.
does the land there become part of the cluster development that it sits on?
What it's going to be only treated for zoning purposes.
I guess where I'm going with this, does that mean that the
The
rest of that land,
homeowners are not going to be, it's going to be separate.
so that the rest of the land wouldn't remain as open space under the cluster development? The rest of the land?
No, the rest of the 4 acres, the trustees would get to do what
This
they
is land
want.
adjacent to, it's outside of the 30 acres.
It's outside of the Pulte land. Oh, I understand that, but what Alex said, well, it will become part of the cluster development as such.
Well,
For
that will
zoning
be-
purposes only.
Well,
just so that we can get it built.
just so you can get it built. No, I understand that, but I wanted to find out if it also becomes part of the entire cluster development, meaning the remainder of the land stays as open land.
No,
But you
no,
answered the question.
no. All right, well, that was a good question.
Well, why don't they get to take advantage of an additional unit for every 325,000 square feet?
Because the selectmen said 23 units, and
In the
right, in the
original
purchase and
agreements?
sales agreement. And
So that's
and we're
fixed.
going to respect, the trustees said that, and it seems to me the trustees, they can fit 23 in, and they should be able to, but there's no point of us saying, put more in.
Well, my point is, what if they decide they'd like to put more in and use this as?
We can, you see, there's a dead-end street, and the way you do this is you go up that dead-end street and go, you take your measurements for frontage, up the dead-end street. And once we get to 23, the planning board says, well, that's as long a street as we would permit under the waiver, because it would be over 500 feet long.
Well, not only that, but if the trustees of the Governor Stoughton land say, we're not going to execute this purchase and sale for anything
Well, yeah,
more
it
than
was a
23
previous
units.
agreement.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
exactly.
it's an agreement.
But,
Yeah.
but we could control it even if the
You own the
agreement. We can hold it at 23.
Just as a point of curiosity, how does this impact, or does it have any impact on the Attorney General's decision?
No.
No, the Attorney General leaves it up to the town to work out the planning.
Yeah, they don't care about the.
The idea or concept is acceptable.
They're
to them.
interested in the money. And it's used for the poor. So I would, I want to work this language out with Pulte and the trustees, of course, and our town council. But I do think that we should advise the warrant committee that with this amendment, this basic amendment, the article is one that should be passed.
To, again, simplify it and clarify it in my own head, Pulte will live under the original language of the cluster development with the addition of this amendment.
No, unless they elect not to.
In elect not to under this additional amendment that you're gonna add.
Right, no, they would take all the amendments,
Okay.
including this amendment.
All right, but it would seem as though the
This
only
is
thing
a
they could take
Pulte
advantage of.
enabling act,
The only-
enabling Pulte to proceed under the
Right,
cluster
so under the
zoning.
new, the only thing it would seem as though they could take advantage of is the additional 2 affordable housing units.
Right, and it's more flexible, it gives them a better ability to do a well-designed housing development. It's a better bylaw, and I wrote them both, so I should know.
So you have.
Well, that's your opinion.
Well, and you did.
Yes, yes, yes.
Ernie,
Dr.
is it a
Monk,
better bylaw?
25 years ago.
Is it a better bylaw now?
Absolutely.
Okay. Alex, I'll second your motion, which remains on the table. I will add one caveat that at some point, I think it's fine going ahead with now, at some point, I think we should look at estates that have existing historic buildings on them and possibly modify the cluster development to give some sort of incentive for keeping the historic house on, in addition to putting additional units in the cluster format.
So to get
Yeah.
the number of units you'd be allowed to get and allow outside of that to
Keeping the
have the
building.
original structure remain.
Yeah, so I want us to think further about how we want to do that. I think it's probably too difficult to try and insert in now, but as we look at it, I am concerned that there are a number of estates around, and somebody may come in and say, oh, I can get these units, but I'm gonna knock this house down. So I want some sort of incentive for preserving some of those great houses.
I think it's a great idea. I'm just thinking in the sense of a practical matter.
We
It
might
would seem
be-
that the house is probably sitting on the most buildable portion of that land. So if a gentleman has a 10-acre estate with one house on it, chances are he's covered a good portion of that buildable land.
Possibly, maybe not, it may be larger than a 10-acre, but one of the things we might consider, and this is why I think it's too complex to allow now, is we might consider allowing them to condoize multiple units in a larger house to preserve that house, and then put elsewhere, either clustered around in a nice design, which you'd have to figure out, or elsewhere on the state, allow them to put additional units. I don't want to see some of the beautiful houses that we have destroyed just because they are on the most buildable portion. So it requires further thought, but I'd like to consider that at some point within the next couple of years, we might amend this zoning again to allow for
Emily,
that.
it sounds like the Burr Estate, didn't, that the Burr Estate was an old building.
Attached condos.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So we've already done it.
Yeah, but,
But this, it seems to me that what you want on your estate building, you don't want to do what some people do, is put it on the same size lot. Like you take the
Right.
Carberry house, you want it on, it's a 23-acre site, you want it on 4 acres.
yeah,
And then you want to, and there's no with Carberry, even without amending this, using the cluster development, because it's a discretionary thing with the planning board, pushing to do exactly that, if you want to get, you're going to get the same number of units or more, and you still can, preserve the house.
So did you more or less subdivide it? Did you leave the
Yeah, that's
Carberry
what I
house on the
wondered.
4 acres? Say now you have 19 separate acres, but are you then saying that you'd be able to put a cluster development that represents the area of land of 23 acres?
The Carberry, you see, yes,
I
because
answered
the
my math
4-acre,
right.
the 4-acre site, it's in a cluster. Your lots can be only 10,000 square feet, but they don't have to be 10,000. They can be more. They can be 40,000, say in an A zone, you want to do acre lots.
but are you still preserving a certain amount? Because that's my concern with the cluster zoning, is I don't want to put the cluster zoning in and then have the houses spread out to look like a standard
The other thing you
subdivision.
can do
It should be
with
clustered
that
together.
is simply say your open space around Carberry, around the original house,
Conservation easements.
it all counts for open space, so.
And then that becomes part of the condo association?
And it's part of the
okay.
condo, but you still have the, I mean, there are a number of ways to do what you're suggesting.
Okay.
And we can amend it further.
Bill wanted to be very big.
I would hope that the board would take and look at the attached cluster bylaw, which says you can only use it in District E, which, for the Carberry estate,
Is that the Condex?
E?
Done a couple of those.
That's,
No,
that-
E
that's,
is Fuller Village.
Fuller
but
Village
no,
is
but
D2.
attached cluster is
E.
Quistic Brook.
Aren't they D?
I think well, it must be D. I mean, it's not Winter
Yeah.
Valley.
Right.
It may be
But
Winter
we
Valley.
just need to remove the piece that says that they have to be in E
Right.
in
And
order
then-
to
and
handle some of the
then just
larger
Oh, I see.
check the
estates.
Okay,
density.
yeah.
To
check
address
the
the
density.
larger estates and do something like
Okay.
John Cronin is talking about.
But what you
Wings.
started out saying, Emily, is you want to put some more thought into this.
Exactly.
and
You
Interject
could
it
bring
at
it through
some
for
time in the
October.
future.
Yeah. So, yes,
be on
exactly.
with
No,
that.
I'm happy with what we have now. I just want to make sure that we don't lose sight of some of the other things that we're trying to do as far as preserving those beautiful houses.
Okay,
Okay.
anything else?
Good.
Recommend to the warrant committee? I'll get the language to the warrant committee. Okay. All in favor? Aye. So you can see that it's a unanimous vote, and I'll have some extra language, Pulte language, for the warrant committee soon, before next Wednesday.
See, we operate quickly.
We do everything we can. The medical marijuana bylaw, I got a communication from Mr. Flynn, who was rewriting the moratorium language.
I saw
which-
that, yeah.
Which I thought was fine. If he has nothing better to do, then do that. But the medical marijuana citing.
Yes.
Citing proposal, I asked him, I said, any problems with that? And I've heard nothing. So I'm going to, I'm going to assume that no news is good news.
You had a question from somebody on medical marijuana, which I'll address in a minute, and I've had a question.
Okay.
I had a question from somebody at the forum on March 1st as to why can't we just tell pharmacies to do this, and we don't have to worry about it at all. So I wanted to address that publicly because it's likely to come up at town meeting. And there's two reasons. One is, of course, marijuana is still illegal under federal law. And so the likelihood of an established pharmacy, say a CVS or a Walgreens or one of those, is pretty slim. But the other reason is and the more specific reason is under state law, it must be a nonprofit that's doing this. And obviously, most pharmacies are not nonprofits. So I just wanted to address that. Alex, I believe you'd had a question from that you mentioned last time from somebody wanting to know about limiting the numbers.
Yeah.
So I had a look at the business district, and if the board is interested in adding something to this to limit the numbers, if we state that an MMF, medical marijuana facility, may not be located within 1,000 feet of an existing MMF, it would pretty much mean that you could only have one per business district. I got on Google Earth and started measuring the sight lines to see how far they would be. Now, as a practical matter, the likelihood of Milton ever getting more than one when they're
All right, well, what's
is
that
pretty slim.
language?
It would be under 5 general requirements and conditions for all medical marijuana facilities. Under A, I would
We're
add.
going to give this to Jean.
I can give this to Jean, but
Right.
I'll read it out to you guys so you know. A, I would add 4 at the end. A MMF may not be located within 1,000 feet of an existing MMF. And I'll give that to you, Jean, by email.
All right.
And that's the only addition I would
That
make.
sounds like a good addition to give to the warrant committee with our recommendation that the town meeting pass this.
And I would move that we recommend that the town meeting pass this article as amended.
With the amendment. Anyone, we have a second, I think.
I'll second.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do we have a discussion? We've discussed this before. And I don't think we need to discuss it any further. All in favor? Aye. Okay, the medical marijuana moratorium, I told Mr. Flynn that whatever he wrote was fine with me.
Yeah, I had to look at what he'd suggested, and it looks fine as well, so he's
Okay.
just adjusting some legalese.
It's a very excellent.
So I would move that we recommend that town meeting vote yes on the medical marijuana moratorium, and just to note that this is in place just in case either town meeting doesn't vote in favor of the medical marijuana zoning that we've just asked them to vote in favor of, or if they vote in favor of it, but the AG strikes a provision for whatever reason, this keeps us protected for that period.
Now, and to the warrant committee, and we will add a little language to the effect that, I mean, the moratorium language should pass.
Yes.
Even if the medical marijuana article passes, just in case the Attorney General rejects it.
Yes.
So we have to make sure that the moratorium language says this only kicks in if the Attorney General rejects it, because that would
Right.
be,
And I-
assuming that, the prior article is passed.
And I believe the way John Flynn altered this is he's got, the moratorium shall be in effect through December 31st, 2014, or the date of final approval by the Massachusetts Attorney General, which means we don't have to come back and rescind it in October. Originally, that's what we would have to do. But by saying that if it goes into effect until that final
All right,
approval,
So we think
we're
that
good.
he's covered it.
Yeah, I think he has.
Question, what if the town meeting rejects it?
Rejects the moratorium?
No.
They
No,
shouldn't.
rejects the initial.
Oh, if they reject the initial, then we have to make sure they vote for the moratorium, or we'll be completely unprotected, yes. That's
But-
the other reason.
But
for
in any
moratorium.
event, with John Flynn's new language, we recommend that the moratorium be passed.
Absolutely.
Okay? We have a second? All right. We have any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right. The financial penalty, which, as you know, is to boost the financial penalty by providing that the initial penalty will apply if the zoning violation continues for more than 2 weeks. And it becomes a new violation for every 2 weeks thereafter until a year has elapsed, at which point we hope that the building commissioner has gone to court and
Does it max out?
solved it. Yes? So, Mr. Sheffield has spoken in support of this, and if Mr. Sheffield speaks, it seems to me that we should recommend that the warrant committee approve this.
You better watch out. He's going to put that in writing and bring it back to you. I'll move that we ask that town meeting vote yes on this article for the financial penalties.
Due to its merits.
Well, yes.
Rather than the fact that Mr. Sheffield.
Yes, the merits of the article, yeah.
We will.
You seconding that, Mike?
Absolutely.
This will be a strict vote on the merits of the article.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. All in favor? Aye. So we've recommended this article. Now, the attached condominium residence development Paul Sullivan has agreed that this can be committed for study by the planning board. And I think that that seems like an excellent,
Good idea.
Yes.
an excellent plan.
So it won't be going to town meeting.
So I think that we will, when it comes up, we hope that the warrant committee will recommend that this article be committed to the town meeting for further study, because it really is not, for numerous reasons, which I think the warrant committee is aware of, it's not a good piece of potential zoning. And some further study, it has to do with a 30,000 square foot parcel of land that is not even a lot. It has no frontage, it has no access.
It needs some further consideration.
It
and
needs further
discussion.
consideration
Yeah.
by the planning board. So we will recommend that it be committed to the planning board and see what happens.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay. Now, we get to agricultural nursery landscaping development. And I have passed out a handout of zoning, which I think would be better than what is currently proposed. But I think that we'll continue the, before I get too involved in that, let's hear from the public.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Slightman, Town Meeting Member Precinct 1, co-chair of Milton Citizens Against Aviation Impact, and a candidate for library trustee. Why is it every time I don't like something in this town, it has to do with zoning? This is what got me involved in town politics in the first place. Around 5 years ago, when I found out that Temple Shalom, of which I was a member, wanted to sell their land to a developer who would build a new temple for them, this hinged on allowing for a commercial overlay that would change the zoning from residential to commercial. How did things work out? Well, the synagogue of which I was a member was sold to a church. The building continues as a place of worship with traffic only on Sunday. Traffic, noise, and lights remain the same as in the past. All the neighbors can continue to enjoy their homes as they did in the past. The commercial use does not threaten the value of surrounding homes and the taxes that those homes generate for the town. Why is it when a commercial property is introduced into this town, they always think that to fix is to change the zoning with an overlay? A lot of other planning is seat of the pants in this town, and zoning overlay requests for Thayer is that. No one wants Thayer to leave. Thayer is a lovely family, a well-respected business, but they, like others, need to follow the law. Isn't this why we desperately need a master plan? A master plan that will have specifically delineated areas in the town for commercial property. In addition to what we're here for tonight, there's a lot of decision-making around the 2 proposed 40Bs in the town. In my opinion, and again, it's my opinion, the current Henry's location is perfect for smart, planned, affordable housing. It's on the trolley line. People can walk to Milton shops, Milton restaurants, Milton businesses, Boston shops, Boston restaurants, Boston businesses, and there's a supermarket there. That's smart planning. The impact of changing Temple Shalom zoning to allow a CVS and other commercial property on the land would have affected property values in the neighborhood and the ability to enjoy my home. Imagine the deliveries. Imagine the lights. Imagine all the traffic on the narrow streets. Who would it help? It would have only helped the synagogue at the cost of neighbors like you and everyone else in this room. Why should all the neighbors suffer the annoyance of a commercial neighbor and all the additional traffic and commotion for the good of one organization? My father built our house where he did with certain expectations. How is it fair to suddenly change the zoning for one plot of land so that the expectations of the neighbors who bought there are suddenly changed and their dreams and wishes for their family are shattered because of what they now have to put up with? Should we rush to change zoning for Thayer, or should we take time to see how things will evolve? Should we see what comes out of the master plan exercise before a small group rushes to judgment? In the mix, we have one commercial business that pays little tax because of the farm abatement, even though it is not now a farm. The planning board does not influence the taxes that Thayer will pay now or in the future. Most likely, Thayer will continue to receive the farm abatement. They use their commercial vehicles in a commercial business, but they pay no excise tax because the assessor doesn't enforce the rules surrounding farm plates. That is another thing that the planning board cannot control, and it will most likely continue. The assessor and board of assessors will make all of the decisions. They have always granted the farm exemption, and they have always allowed farm plates. What does the town need to do in light of the facts? It needs to protect the value of the homes in the surrounding community who actually pays taxes to help support the town of Milton. Let's retain and enforce the 1938 bylaws. Let's do what was done at the town of the Temple decision. Let's protect the neighborhood. And now the Temple is going to be built in a beautiful residential neighborhood on a wooded property, and the end result will be happy for everybody. Let's finish the master planning exercise so we know what the town residents really want. Let's not disable this town financially by giving rights to one family who does not pay taxes to diminish the value of surrounding residences who do pay taxes. What are the benefits to me, as a town resident, that would induce me to support this business with the dollars that my family pays in taxes? I'd like to know the answer to that one. Thank you.
All right. Now, I mean, I'm going to describe this handout that I gave to you. I think that offers a context, and I, considered the fact that there is the opportunity to say no. And I, personally think that saying no is a harsh thing to do if there is a possibility of not having to say no. And in my view, having listened to the testimony, I think that we have had an enforcement problem up there, and I think that we have had a confusion as to what the law was regarding landscaping and regarding protected agricultural uses and regarding nursery uses. And it seems to me that a good deal of clarification is needed. And in this 7-page, single-spaced document that I've distributed, there is a good deal of clarification, and the standards for a landscaping business in a residence zone are made as clear or are made clear. I suppose something can always be made more clear by repeating it and repeating it and repeating it, but it just does seem to me that here you've had a use that undoubtedly has caused a lot of dissatisfactions with a number of people for a number of different reasons, and those dissatisfactions have to be addressed. This would provide for a special permit from the planning board, which, in my opinion, would have teeth. The building inspector, the permit would be for an initial term of 3 years. It would have 5-year renewal term, assuming that there had been compliance during the prior term. But there also would be the possibility for the building commissioner, and we've got to assume the building commissioner will do his duty, will close it down if there has been material breach of the terms of the permit. So my inclination is that saying no at this time is too harsh, and that we should do our best to address the problems and provide for something that hopefully can coexist with its neighbors. That was the motivation in producing this revised zoning. What has been proposed, I think, is far too broad, and it doesn't contain the specifics that are needed to make sure that landscaping businesses are conducted in a way which is respectful of the area that they're in. And I think that it is and should be possible. With that said, I'd like to hear from Mr. Corcoran.
Good evening, Alex, members of the board. For the record, Ned Corcoran. I am an attorney. I'm a resident of Milton, attorney based in Quincy, representing Thayer Nursery and the citizens who filed the petition to amend the bylaw to allow the landscaping use, particularly at Thayer, to be reintroduced at the site. And I'm joined by Josh Oldfield, who is one of the principals of the Thayer Nursery landscaping business, and obviously one of the member of the Oldfield family that has operated this property since the 1960s, and obviously are desirous of remaining and operating from the single location. It's clear, Alex, that you have done an enormous amount of work. It is a heroic task, I think, to do what you've done. I applaud you for the effort that you've undertaken, for the thought, careful consideration that you've put into it. I know that you've just produced it, so I have reviewed it fairly cursorily, as opposed, I suppose others would, and subject to whether I might have some specific editorial comment. I think it is a very good alternative to what was filed, and if a bylaw like this is presented to town meeting, I would encourage town meeting to support a bylaw change in this format. I think this does a lot it's clear that you have the best interest of the near abutters and the town in mind as you have worked your way through this provision. And so, again, I applaud you and congratulate you for what you've done. And I can say that on behalf of the Oldfield family that we are substantially in support of what you have presented here.
Well, this is good, because were we to say to the warrant committee, we recommend that you throw out everything that you've got on your plate and make a recommendation from scratch that you have a new 7 single-space page bylaw, that the warrant committee might feel that this was not a sensible procedure. And it seems to me that the procedure that should be followed on this is as follows. That the board should read this and determine whether or not they are in general support, and should advise Mr. Corcoran of that fact. If the board is in general support, they don't have to sign their names in blood, but if they're in general support, then it would be up to the original applicants to secure 100 names on a petition for a special town meeting. And that would have to be done fairly soon, so that the selectmen, once they receive this, could schedule a special town meeting at the same time as the annual town meeting. However, this article then would be the main article, and we wouldn't need to go about trying to amend something in a way that is 100% different. So that is, yes,
How would you deal with the original article at town meeting?
it would be denied.
I don't think you could deny it and then do a new article so quickly. Don't you have to wait 2 years? Could you
Well, it
could you
hasn't been,
remit it
it
back?
hasn't been acted on. It could be committed to the planning board for
Committed-
study.
Or it could be postponed until after the special town meeting, and then it could be reconsidered.
Yeah, that actually might be the cleaner way of doing it, so.
Okay, well, that's a good question.
I think that is obviously a technical
Yeah, but we
hurdle
should,
to consider, but easily surmounted, I would say.
no, but people should be aware of what the process is, or they're going to get confused by 2 articles.
So when would the newer article come before town meeting?
It would come in May, is what the town has done before is they start the annual town meeting, and then they have a date certain special town meeting within the annual. So say you get up to Article 25 by the date of the special, then you open the special town meeting, deal with that, and then go to Article 26.
So the special town meeting is within.
Exactly.
the timeframe of the
Yeah, and there's
scheduled
different
town meeting.
posting requirements for the special town meeting. There's a different schedule for proponents to get
Town
there.
meeting is
First Monday in May,
May 6th.
yeah,
6th, 7th, and 9th.
and hopefully that's it. So,
And then,
So does that
before it got to the, once it had gone to the selectmen, they would advise the planning board, and we would do a newspaper advertisement, because we have to hold a public hearing, would have to hold a public hearing on this, and would take comments as to whether or not we should recommend it to the town meeting.
so we would close the hearing on the current article.
Well, we're going to have to,
Well, we have to do it anyway, but just
Right.
to outline it, we would officially close the hearing on this article, make whatever recommendation, and then if this goes forward based on what we talk about tonight, then we'd open up a brand-new public hearing on the new article.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And a public hearing, and then it would go to the warrant committee for the warrant committee's recommendation, which would probably be sometime in April.
Yeah, because the publication requirement timing would be a little bit different for the
So
special.
we have time to edit this to some extent and have a public response to it.
Yes, absolutely.
But what we really want, if you have comments, give them to Mr. Corcoran, because he is going to have to get 100 names on a petition.
He does
And
what?
it has, well, it needs to move. It needs to move.
Should we send all of our comments to Bill, who can collect them and forward them all together?
I think that,
Excellent.
I think that's a good plan. Because if this is to work, it needs to be done, we need to make it move.
Can I ask you a question
What was the question?
regarding the article that you wrote? Number 3, nursery or agricultural service provided by a landscaping business shall be deemed to be a landscaping service subject to this subsection. Is that to address taxes?
That's
Was that the
to,
intent?
that's to address use of bobcats.
Oh. So you're not addressing this?
It seems to me the assessors need to look at this and assess it properly. I think the assessors may have missed something, but I'm not going to tell the assessors how to do this. We can't tell the assessors how to assess in the zoning.
But can we somehow help them to understand that if you're growing something there, but it's going to be pulled out of the ground and used in your landscaping business, it's no longer a farm, it's part of the landscaping business?
I think that if
Okay,
they
how can we
read
help
this,
them
if
understand
they
that?
read this, they should be aware of that.
I mean, it seems to me that it would be hard to define any of the area up there as a farm relative to, well, we're growing these bushes to be sold here. Yeah, but is the one next to it gonna be plucked out of the ground again and be shipped over to Weston and put in someone's house?
Happily, we are not, the zoning does not control taxes. What we have done is made provision for a business use, the landscaping business use, and we said that if these other services flow into it, it should be considered part of the business use. It seems to me the assessors have to exercise their wisdom and expertise.
I'd like to see, just as, you know, and I know we're gonna forward the comments, but I'd like to see the period of time this is reassessed to be much less than 3 years. I'd like to see it go like 1 year, then 2 years, then to 5 years. I mean, it's been, I'm not saying this side's right or that side's right, but it's obviously been very contentious
Right.
on what one person foresees as one thing and somebody else sees as completely different. So I think letting it string along for 3 years could only add to this contention. I'd like to see a shorter period of time to come back and say, after a year, has this resolved some of the issues? Does this work? Is it falling within the parameters of this new article?
Well, I understand the point, but of course, 3 years isn't that long a time. And I do think that after you get through, bear in mind, this is just zoning. This provides for a special permit. And the special permit means the planning board is going to have a hearing, which will probably take 3 nights or so. After that has been completed, the thought of doing it in a year, it just seems to me that 3 years, especially when the building commissioner has the opportunity to close them down.
I've heard mostly positive support. I've been a customer there, I think it's a beautiful location. But I think I have to put added value in the opinion of the most adjacent abutters, who are most impacted by any negative situations. So my thought is to add some greater oversight for them.
I understand what you're saying, Mike, and you're making a really good point. But it's hard, and I understand what Alex is saying about going through it right again. It's hard for a business to plan on a year-by-year basis. So what I'm wondering is, does the special permit, the initial special permit, get granted for for 3 years? But we have a public hearing after a year to see how things are going. So the special permit's longer. If everything's going fine after a year, then the special permit continues for its full 3. And if there's something really, out of whack, then we have the ability under this to direct the building commissioner or the Board of Appeals to revoke.
I understand what you're saying about, having a business plan and
Yeah.
being restricted to being, it might be null and void in a year, that's
That's tricky.
horrendous.
Yeah.
But in the same vein, if my business plan adheres to the article, then I should have no fear to continue with that business plan. And I think we're all reasonable people here in the planning board, and if something that should come up that they, fractionally, overstep the article, I'm sure we'd be in a position to say, let's be reasonable. But if we should have a major infraction,
Well, 2 comments on that. One is, I'm worried about banks giving loans. If there's a business plan that, could go out of whack in a year. And I agree, if they're in full compliance under the business plan, that shouldn't happen. But just thinking about banks and how strict they are in certain things, so that's one. 2 is, and this is always the thing with zoning, and Alex had a good point by talking about writing the zoning, assuming that the building commissioner was going to do the duties of the building commissioner, is we can never write zoning assuming that the same people will be in office all the way through. So,
but
Politics, things happen.
To that point,
Yeah.
what are you leading to? Are you saying that when I said that we were all reasonable people,
Exactly.
I'm going to get an unreasonable person here?
I don't know, my cold might get worse.
I mean, I'm reasonable and unreasonable at other times, but
Right,
that's,
exactly, but we just have to make sure that whatever's in the zoning isn't necessarily dependent on how the people around this table today feel, but make sure that it's written to cover all contingencies.
again, I
is
think
the only
the
point
basis
on
of my
that.
point is, Ned said that, they looked at this and feel that it's a very fair situation, the article. So if we make some minor adjustments to this article, and they consider it a fair situation, then to me, that says they're more than willing to abide by it. In which case, again, I don't see the downside of limiting to a year to, again,
Well, a year is not, we could say, or such shorter time as determined by the planning board in the special permit, and kick this can down the road a bit.
well, I could, as a compromise, I could probably go with that, in the fact that people come to the board and say, we're having problems, and we say, in that case, we need to call a hearing and address the
So we
permit.
just
Yeah.
say, or such shorter time as the planning board may determine?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. Mike definitely brings up a good point, which is that we have heard from the proponent of the article saying that they feel that this is fair. I know, at least and I think we were all CC'd on it, got an email that Bill forwarded from one of the abutters that had certain specific conditions laid out, and I would like to know if this addresses those conditions. It did on my quick skim through.
This does not did not include all those conditions.
But it included some of them.
The proposed, it touched on areas that the
Okay.
conditions, all electric vehicles would be fine, but I don't, it just seems to me that may be not reasonable.
Well, and some of
But
the
it-
conditions may not have been zoning conditions, so that's
But-
something else we have to
but-
look at,
but
but
in
yeah.
replacement,
I
you could.
have, I heard the pain, and I tried to do what seemed possible and reasonable.
When you go to replace these vehicles, you certainly could go to a propane-powered or an electric-powered vehicle, being a Bobcat.
I don't know about Bobcats.
That
You
I'm
have one
explaining.
at home?
I don't, but I've used them. And it just and I'll hold my other comments to an email to Bill, but you address a fence or a wall.
Yeah.
I'd like to see like at least a 6-foot minimum on that.
It would be, I think that that's there. I think that it could be 6 feet, but it might be 8 feet.
I prefer 8 feet, but at least it's.
That letter said 10 feet.
It
Concrete.
did, but I think an 8-foot stockade fence isn't, that unusual.
Well, an 8-foot sound-resistant fence is it's somewhat unusual, but not that unusual. But the 6-foot minimum is probably not, doesn't impact it. I think that to be an effective fence, it's got to be at least 6 feet, but I think that it's actually got to be more. But I've put down 6 feet.
That's ridiculous.
No, but as a minimum. Okay, I won't put down a minimum because I agree.
Everything that you put in here requires that they come before the planning board to
Right.
be approved anyway.
Right, exactly. The fence would come in, they'd have to say what the fence was, and it would be subject to determination.
So process-wise, we're still in the public hearing for
We are.
this? Okay.
We are indeed.
Right.
This is, yes, this is right. But if we decide to basically start over again using a different document, we would have another public hearing, and
Right.
the people who want to testify will have an opportunity to do so. And it seems to me that that is the special town meeting is the way to go, especially since they're going to have to produce 100 people who are supportive.
So how do you want to handle the current process? Do you want to continue to take testimony from the public? Do you want to close the public hearing and move it over where?
I would.
What is your goal?
I would, I mean, I think that the control of whether well, let's see if anyone wants to continue. Well, Mr. Dunn, let's hear from you, just to,
And we do have some proponents that would like to speak. They took the time out of their evening to plan.
that's fine. We can hear, but just, if you do it in this possible context, that's useful. Okay.
Does everyone have a copy of, okay.
Thank you again for entertaining me. My name is Matthew Dunn. I represent Philip Joining and John Rowe, 23 Parkwood Drive in Milton, direct abutter to Thayer's property. I got a copy of the board's proposed revisions to the citizens petition about 25 minutes ago. This is the third time I've been before this board. I've been in email contact with Mr. Clark. I'm not sure when Mr. Corcoran was provided a copy with this, but I would have appreciated a courtesy copy be provided to me, at least, a half hour beforehand. But I guess that wasn't the case. Procedurally, I'm a bit confused as to what the board is proposing. I think in substance, there's been a denial of the citizens petition, and there's going to be a reintroduction of a revised plan, and this is the way I envision it, and I'd encourage clarification from the board as to what's proposed. I mean, I've heard that there's been this document that I haven't had a full opportunity to read through. I just briefly skimmed it. Gives a very extremely broad interpretation as to what landscaping encaptures. It apparently under this definition, it encaptures snow plowing, retail sales, construction, nursery use, agricultural. It's very broad. And I just haven't had an opportunity to fully digest. And I recognize that there, a lot of work has gone into this, and there's a lot of work that was in an attempt to draw a compromise between competing factions here. So I guess, you know, the first thing that I have a couple questions. The first question is, you know, if we can all recognize that, you know, we're doing this for the economic benefit of Thayer Nursery, number one. We're doing it to sidestep two ZBA decisions that have already recognized that these commercial uses aren't allowed in the residential district, number two. And number three, the procedure that's being proposed is being done to sidestep the 2-year prohibition upon reintroduction of new material to the town meeting. You know, I need clarification on all those points because, I mean, procedurally, it's not really adding up on my end.
All right, well, let me say that this actually would apply to Thayer Nursery, but it's been written so that it would apply to other landscapers in town if they needed it.
Which ones? Do you know which ones?
Thomas,
Eagle?
Eagle,
Who's the other ones?
I think that's all we have.
that's it?
Colton?
Colta has his own.
What about the people in?
Malloy,
What?
Malloy.
Yeah.
Driscoll.
Driscoll, do they do landscaping? It applies to any landscaper who has a special permit, who may find themselves in trouble. I don't know anything about the other operations, and whether or not they might be impacted is, it seems possible, and there certainly needs, rather than close everyone in downtown, it seems sensible to have a procedure to protect them. So that the original zoning was, in fact, directed solely at Thayer, and this is broader. But it certainly was prompted by what's happened to Thayer, and it does attempt to address the issues created by the various decisions of the Board of Appeals and Judge Sand's views in the land court. But that's often the case of zoning. What was the final point? The fact that the first one might be, the fact of the matter is, the fact it's been introduced doesn't do anything. It's only if it's been acted on that you have the delay. And I would actually say that this is substantially different from from what's on the May warrant now. Very substantially different. So I don't think that the disability would in fact kick in, even if that other thing were considered and acted on in a way that might, in other circumstances, create a disability period.
When you say acted on, you mean acted on by town meeting?
By town meeting, yeah.
I have two questions. The first one is, you know, what would be the public purpose for this amendment?
This would not require a public purpose. But the public purpose would be to keep these landscaping businesses going.
I guess the next question is with regards to procedure for, and I know that you had mentioned the, this is going to be circulated for signature of.
Not by the planning board.
The original people that
by the citizen, by
citizens.
concerned
As
citizens.
citizens, it would be a citizen's petition for a special town meeting.
If they agree to do it. Remember, this is something that you have worked on and have worked very hard on.
Right. No, I mean, if the citizens, if 100 citizens want to have a special town meeting for this article, as it may be immaterially amended, or materially amended, as it may, you know, they will have the opportunity to determine what they want to be determined.
What opportunity would people have, concerned citizens, to provide input into the language of the amendment?
You can talk to me, because I'm going to control the final drafting.
And then it goes before this board again?
Then it goes to the selectmen and they would call a special town meeting,
And then it would come to the board.
and then it would come to us.
Or they might not call a special town meeting.
Well, they have to.
Yeah, if they get
Oh,
the
that-
100
that's right, they get the
signatures,
100
assuming it's
signatures.
in correct form, et cetera, et cetera, et
Right.
cetera.
And is it the selectmen that determine the date for that special town meeting?
Yes, they determine the date, but we would assume that they would probably want to do it during the annual town meeting.
Save on costs, if nothing else.
This has happened in the past. This is not a new procedure. It's usually the selectmen's special town meeting, though.
It's happened with financial articles where something unexpected has come in after the regular warrant has gone to press.
Okay, so just to be clear, that there's going to be a circulation of a petition substantially in this form, or however it's drafted, with input to Attorney Corcoran, for a signature by 100 registered voters of the
Yes.
town,
Yep.
citizens.
Yep.
And then that is provided to the selectmen, who will schedule a special town meeting,
Yep.
and refer this matter to the proposed petition to this board,
It'll go to the planning board and to the warrant committee.
to the plan. And that notice will be provided, how?
We will.
Same way we always do for a public hearing, yeah, we advertise.
Okay.
So
Is it 100 registered voters or 100 citizens of the town?
Citizens.
Yeah.
So they don't necessarily have to be a voter.
Do
Okay,
they
so,
have to be of legal age?
I think so, yeah, I'm not sure, but I think so.
okay, so,
If we file, if we go out and get 100 citizens to sign something substantial in this form, we'll get 100 citizens to sign.
okay, and
And
then,
if that happens, and if it's filed with the selectmen, then there would be the public hearing process that's similar to what is undertaken. So that's in our court to determine if in fact we go forward
Right.
with that as an alternative bylaw proposal for consideration by the two town meetings. If we're satisfied that the existing bylaw does enough for us,
You could choose
then
to
we
go
can
ahead with
just
that,
simply
yeah.
keep going under the existing proposal.
okay, so there's a potential for that these would run simultaneously. Okay. And so, I'm sorry, I'm still trying to get my head around this. So they would have an opportunity to, basically what we just did for the last two sessions?
Exactly.
Okay, have an opportunity to be heard, go back before the warrant committee with regards to recommendations, and then proceed to the, regardless.
Whatever the warrant committee's procedures are, that would be their.
And then that would be
procedures.
presented to the special town meeting
Right.
They would have a recommendation.
with the they would or they would not?
They would.
They would have.
They would formulate a recommendation, and we would formulate a recommendation also.
So if the current citizen's petition is not tabled or denied, I'm just confused.
Only town meeting can determine what to do with the citizen's petition when it gets before them.
Okay, but doesn't this?
Planning board can recommend.
Okay, right, that's what I was gonna get at. Doesn't this board have to give a recommendation if he's gonna proceed with the current
original
citizen's
one.
petition?
We have to have a recommendation on that, right.
to the
To the town meeting.
to the warrant committee.
To the town
To the
meeting.
town meeting.
Right.
So that will be on the,
And then the warrant committee will have a recommendation also.
okay, and so that'll be, as the citizen's petition is, assuming he doesn't withdraw it,
Yeah.
That current citizens petition will be on the warrant for the May town meeting with a recommendation from this board to deny that. Should this board.
Whatever we recommend.
Right, should you choose to do that. And then there'll be a special town meeting with a different proposal or a different petition that will have a separate recommendation.
Potentially, yes.
Potentially,
Yeah.
from this board and from the warrant committee.
Right, exactly.
Okay, all right.
But they recessed the original town meeting, you know, a couple of minutes.
Right.
And then the people will vote to get the second town meeting going.
Okay.
And they'll vote,
Right.
so it's done, the same day?
Well, they wouldn't vote to start it, the moderator would simply call it to order.
Right,
Oh, yeah.
exactly,
Well,
so.
the moderator was, but it's usually done the same day, the same 15 or 20 minutes.
All right. You know, then if we're going to be heard on this, then, you know, if there's not going to be any further comment on the existing citizens petition, and we're going to have an opportunity to speak on this proposed new petition, if and when it goes through the process we just discussed, you know, then I don't have any further
Well,
comments.
apparently, we're going to get some further testimony about the original petition, but presumably, I don't know what it's going to be, but we will continue this hearing, and you can come back up if you feel that you're obliged to.
Well, I mean, you're saying that, sort of withdraw myself, allow people to have public comment, and then
Yeah,
then comment on the
if you
existing
want to
citizens
comment
petition.
on the comments, you can feel free.
Okay.
We were never notified of this here.
Yeah,
We were never notified of,
so what are the notice requirements? I mean,
For a continued hearing?
No, for, if the new citizens petition is presented to
We'll
the,
advertise it with
Yeah.
the date
in the Milton Times?
in the Milton Times.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no, if I remember correctly, there's no mailed notification for a zoning public hearing for articles. It's just advertisement at the Times. And of course, people can always, what?
It's advertised 2 weeks, 15 days ahead in the Milton Times. It has it's on a bulletin board here in this building, and it is stamped in with the clerk on their,
Right, but it's
their
not
site.
mailed out to people. And of course, people
Not-
can always call your office.
yes.
So,
Or speak to Bill directly.
oh, speak to Bill directly.
Now, why don't you talk to the town planner about a matter of urgency?
I don't know. There's days he doesn't take my calls, so, you know.
Get an assistant, though. Thank God.
All right, now,
Be screening.
we will continue with this hearing. Who wants to be heard on the article that was advertised, if anyone? Introduce yourself for the viewers. I guess I should tell people, it's a little late, but we are being recorded and televised.
Oh, in that case. My name's Derek Shuttle. I live at 27 Forest Street. I lived in Milton for 13 years, 6 of which were at 27 Forest. So I've been watching, well, first of all, that's my wife Christine. We have 4 young kids, 9, 8, 6, and 3. So we're busy, as I'm sure all of us are. But we've been watching this from afar, trying to participate when appropriate, but certainly listening to the dialogue around the neighborhood. And wanted to share my view. I'm a small business owner, and I think if, understanding the challenges we all face in our day-to-day lives, trying to be successful from a business perspective is always a challenge. So, looking at the consequence of these discussions and, seeing the 2 proposals, and I scanned them relatively quickly, but it's encouraging to see that the proposal in front of us now, it looks to be reasonable, that it tries to capture both parties' perspectives, and I think does so. And I think importantly, not just for Thayer, but as you point out, all landscaping services. Thayer to us has been a great neighbor. We spent a fair bit of time there. And I think also as you look forward to just value in the neighborhood, and we talk about noise, we talk about different things that could impact the quality of life. We've had 2 houses built around 27 Forest. So for the last 5 years, and I think for 3 years,
It started about 7 a.m. every Saturday. It's kind of banging. Next door neighbor. Never heard anything from Thayer. So I was always amazed that, you'd get complaints about Thayer, but it was never about the new house that was going up that took a year and a half longer than it was supposed to. There's another house going up behind. And so all the trucks that go back and forth, those are the 18-wheelers that we always kind of take note of. And I always sympathize for Thayer Nursery because I think they get blamed. Any noise is always a Thayer noise, as I hear it in the neighborhood for some parties. And I would just encourage everyone to take, step back for a minute and look that there's a lot of traffic that goes around that neighborhood. And in fact, the 4 kids we have go back and forth between our place and Thayer. They have a little, putting green. They have goats back, and they have little animals. They have, it's kind of an inviting environment. The fellows that work there always make a point of trying to help them get across the street, look for traffic. So I want to share this kind of personal anecdote because I think it's important, right? Because we moved to Milton, we live in Milton, and we want to stay in Milton for the fact that it's a nice place to raise a family. And Thayer, to me, is a key ingredient, a small business that my son can look at, my daughters can look at, and be proud of. I mean, it's, look at other towns, look at other nurseries. I would put Thayer at the top end in terms of its appearance, in terms of the time and effort they put into making it that way. So I think it's, I can certainly understand butters having a challenge because it can be noisy, there can be, inclement situations, but I would just support and want to advocate for what's in front or what's been proposed in the article, much more so than what I'd seen from what the abutters have proposed. To me, that I think I can understand their perspective, but seems a bit punitive, whereas I think this seems very reasonable. So, appreciate for your time, and this is something we'd support.
One question, Derek.
Yeah.
Are you
Well, wait, you have to, if you ask a question, you have to ask it of me. What's your question? You can't just ask witnesses questions without going through the chair.
Derek knows it.
So to be clear, 27 Forest Street is directly abutting, meaning on the other side of Forest, but directly abutting Thayer Nursery.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good evening indeed.
My name is Bob Daler, and I live at 390 Hillside Street. And I think I rise to encourage the board on the path that you're on. And I do that for support of Thayer Nursery, but for 2 reasons. The first is a matter of equity, with perhaps the exception of few individuals in this room. Everyone who lives in the Hillside Street neighborhood who built or moved there when Thayer Academy was in business. I mean, when Thayer Nursery was in business, sorry. Different hat on. Was in business. It existed. The landscape business, the snow plowing, all of that existed. I've lived here for 13 years. And we live in a town that has 1938 zoning. Virtually everything is, half of the commercial uses in the town, or perhaps more, are all nonconformities that predate the zoning. And that's just part of the charm of living here. But given that reality, there's a real equity question about not being punitive to that operation. And the second is the idea that in the zoning, we could seek, through the special permit process, it doesn't give them, I haven't read your draft, but in the special permit process, it does not give them a sort of a business license. It allows a special permit to operate a landscape business if they meet conditions. And those conditions are meant largely to protect the neighbors. And then the question comes, in the permit of setting those conditions, what is reasonable? And that's always a matter of discussion, but that discussion is not played out at the town meeting. It's played out before you when you hear the facts of what the proposals are, and the abutters can agree that the fence is tall enough, or green enough, or thick enough, or the trucks are small enough, or whatever the facts of the proposal are, they can be argued in the process of setting the conditions for the special permit. So, I think that is the way forward here. And there really is, a previous speaker said, well, what's the public purpose? This is really a handout to Thayer Nursery. There is a public purpose in protecting the institutions of this town. And if we don't set reasonable conditions that allow them to continue their business, and they fail, our neighborhood looks dramatically different if they don't exist anymore. That's the public benefit. So I applaud you, and I'll be back when you have the article.
I'd say that that description of public benefit was a reasonable one. Yes, sir. Okay, come up and introduce yourself and talk into the microphone.
My name is Richard Bonomi. I live at 60 Forest Street. And I have to agree with the gentleman in number 27 Forest Street. I believe this is going in the right direction, okay? I support Thayer Nursery in their operations. Being a businessman myself, I guess I have to. As the last gentleman stated, you have to protect the businesses in town, and you also have to protect the residents in town, okay? It has to be a happy medium. When I read the articles about East Milton Square down there, okay, that's all I read about, and all the money that's dumped in down there. I have my own opinion of it, but we'll leave it at that. But when it comes to small businesses like Thayer, or the minimal ones that we do have in town of nurseries, which is a great asset to the community, our surrounding towns, it also brings in good neighbors. Like the gentleman, number 27, says, why isn't it that the construction vehicles, why is that never an issue? Okay? Now, I built my home up there, and yeah, 27 years ago, I poured a foundation, and I was probably a nuisance also, because I had trucks going in and out of there. All right? I tried to do it in minimal. I tried to appease the neighbors, okay? And you're never going to appease all of them. Someone was wondering how many trees I was going to cut down, but I did have a house to put there. I believe this is a step in the right direction. I believe we got to protect all our neighbors, okay? But again, Thayer Nursery was there a long time before anybody else was there, even before Parkwood was there. But that doesn't mean it's right that they can impose the discomforts on neighbors. That doesn't right. But again, I don't see a discomfort. I honestly don't. You talk about trucks. I have an ongoing dispute with First Start, is it? Why are there buses, school buses, going up and down Forest Street continually as a cut-through to go to Randolph when there's no kids on Forest Street that they pick up? They're not supposed to be there. How come nobody says anything to them? I also have other neighbors that are in business. The gentleman has to go out at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I have to listen to a beeping of a sound, okay? But you know something? That's when he goes out when nobody has a heat call. And that's when he has to take care of his people. That's when he has to, that's when he has to do his business, okay? I'd be a very small person being in business if I sat there and complained about him or anything else that went around in town. I don't mind the noise from Thayer Nursery. I don't mind the trucks. And by the way, I am not a direct abutter, but I am within 200 feet of his property. I understand the gentleman on Parkwood, he does abut him directly. There are other abutters there that really have a great buffer zone that really, I don't see that they have a complaint. I honestly don't. Okay? We've got to be able to get along with our neighbors and our businesses here. If you start driving the businesses out, people complain, oh, he doesn't pay any taxes. Well, excuse me, Chapter 61A was developed by the federal government, okay? And there are ramifications if they decide to ever close that place because the payback on taxes is astronomical. It's just not a free ride, so before people talk, okay? But again, that's just another issue. I believe you're on the right direction here. I believe there's a lot of good issues in here. I believe there's some reasonable, some of them a little bit unreasonable. Again, I support the their operation, okay? I support the landscaper's operation. This might be good for a lot of the other landscapers in town. There are people around that won't let the landscapers park their trucks in their driveway when they're mowing the lawn or doing any kind of work there. I mean, a complete obstruction for anybody that's up there. Let's face it, it's the oldest road in town. It's not easily walked or transportable for anything up there. And if the truck rides over a section of road up there because he's got to make a turn to go in there, the road's a disaster anyhow. They repaved it because of the mess on Randolph Avenue up there, because they fell behind. It's all torn up again. It wasn't really a paving job, okay? But if they have to drive over it, they have to drive over it. Snow plowing, I'll address that, and then I won't go on. The snow plowing issue, anybody that's in business, is in a seasonal business, does anything they can, okay, in the off-season to pick up some kind of slack to pay their bills, okay? Businesses have bills 24/7, 12 months of the year, okay, no matter what it is. They've got to make up that slack. Plowing snow, everybody plows snow. And by the way, everybody plows snow on the street up there and every other street in town. But why is it it's never a major issue? And we've had a tough winter, and if you ever went up there this year, okay, you would need a dog sled to go through the place, all right? But again, I'm here to support Thayer Nursery. I've always supported them. I know the father. We dealt back in the 60s, okay? I think they run a nice business, a nice clean business. I think they're an asset to the neighborhood and an asset to the town, along with Bunny Thomas and Eagle Farm. They've all been through their status over there too, with neighbors, okay? But again, I believe you're in the right direction. There's a lot of articles in here. There's some tweaking to do. But to grant them the permit to go on as they do, grant them the trucks to be back on it. You can't operate without trucks and vehicles, okay? You can set certain hours and restrictions, and I believe that the Oldfields are willing, okay, more than willing to operate that way. If you happen to buy a house that was behind someone, that was something that's already there, to me, there was a due diligence process there that you should have weighed before you went in there, all right? I myself, when I go to sell, maybe it won't be good. Maybe I should just tear it down and just give the land to the Conservation Commission up there. It might be easier, okay? But I want to thank you for your time, and I want to thank you for putting this article together. I think it's well done and well in the right direction. I know beyond that, I know more of what the town meeting is going to do or who's going to approve what. I'm just here to support the Oldfields.
Okay.
And I thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Andy Cahill. I live at 325 Hillside Street. Before I get started, I think we covered the landscape pretty well there. We left out the horses, though. I live on a path, and the horses come by and drop things, and I live with that hardship. So, look, there's a lot of hardships around. But I won't get into any more of them than that. I've lived in 7 different places around the world and around this country, and some nice places. When people ask me, why did I come here, I explain it, and they say, so, what do you like best? Which place do you like best? Paris, France, Southern California, North Carolina, or Milton, Massachusetts? And I tell them Milton, Massachusetts. And when I move again, I'll probably say to them Milton, Massachusetts. But what I'm really saying is the Hillside neighborhood is why I like Massachusetts and the Boston area. I should point out that I have no allegiance, I have no family in the Hillside neighborhood. I'm not running for office. I have no great friends in Hillside. What I have is great neighbors. And that's what I want to talk about tonight. I'm concerned about the neighborhood, and I'm concerned that the process we're going through is going to hurt the neighborhood. It's going to turn great neighbors into less great neighbors. It's going to turn it into a place where people say, it's not the best place I've ever lived. And why is it doing that? Because we're tearing ourselves apart with strife when I think we can resolve it. I think we can go from competing factions, as it was called tonight, to cooperating people and work it out. We can sit at the same table and understand the issues instead of coming here to try to understand the issues from one another, because we're clearly not together. Maybe I have the process wrong, but where people win, is when people give, they concede, they make sure they get what they need to be successful, but they work it out. We've had a lot of issues in the neighborhood. I've been in a butter to an issue in the neighborhood that went on for 10 years. It was an emotional issue. It didn't get that divisive as we are now. It didn't get passive aggressive. Everyone knew where everyone stood for 10 years. You know what? As an abutter, it didn't work out my way. But it worked out. And as a neighborhood, we're together and we'll continue to be together. And that's what we need to do here. It's great. I haven't seen your proposal. It's great to know there is a proposal. My urge, thanks. I'll read it.
You can have it.
My urge to all parties and all neighbors is to get together and work this out. And by the way, cooperating people doesn't mean you have to agree. It means you're cooperating, to at least know that you can agree. I don't think we've done that. I look forward to doing it. Thanks a lot.
All right. Okay, so what we're going to do, I think that's the end of the testimony on this particular matter. If they come in, the board has to, we should close the public hearing and determine what we're going to do with the particular article that we have. So.
Do you want to hear from Mr. Dunn again?
Mr. Dunn didn't put up his hand.
Well, maybe.
Well, I think you know our position.
Oh, we know your position.
Okay.
I move that we close the public hearing on this article.
All right.
Second.
This being the original article.
The
not-
original article, yes, thank you.
All in favor? Well, we did close it. Okay, now that we've closed it, we're going to determine what to recommend. And it really, you know, we have to recommend, this is not properly written. And we could recommend that it be committed to the planning board for study, which is probably the nicer way of saying no. What do you think?
I think that makes the most sense. We don't have, although the proponent has said that he'll go and get signatures, there's no guarantee. They may look at it and say, we'll just take our chances at town meeting. I don't think a no is necessarily appropriate at this time, because it does, if they do go and get signatures, I think it makes it more difficult to figure out how we deal with that. So I would go along with recommending that it be committed to the planning board for further study. I think that's a reasonable move on this.
I think that's the right move.
You don't think there could be any interpretation that we're, you know, saying that this, as it's written, just needs a little bit of work, when in fact, that's not.
Yeah, it needs work.
That's not what
Whether
we're
it's
saying.
little,
We're saying
It needs a lot of
It
work.
isn't
As written,
acceptable.
it needs a lot of work, yeah.
Right.
But we could say that. We can say we think it needs a lot of work and should be committed to the planning board for further study.
I think what we can
For-
do is
for study.
when we go to the warrant committee, Alex, I'm assuming you're representing this to the warrant committee, is we let them know that as written, this does not provide the protections to the abutters and other close neighbors that the public
yeah.
has been looking for. I think we should make that very
I'd like to see
clear.
some strong language there,
Yeah.
because I'd be pretty disappointed if town meeting decided, no, well, we're gonna vote on it.
Well, and that's the
We're not gonna
risk.
send it back to the planning board at this point in time, we're gonna vote on it.
Yeah, and that is the risk from the abutters' point of view, is that, that town meeting can say, thank you very much, planning board, for your recommendation to send it back. Thank you very much, warrant committee, for whatever their recommendation becomes, but we're saying yes anyway.
Which,
Yeah.
in which case, when you saying no is harsh, maybe it's saying the right thing here.
I think that if, in fact,
Yeah.
the special town meeting, that the warrant, in fact, is before us.
Right.
Before the town meeting, that the special, something like this comes up, and from the citizens' process, we can be fairly sure that it is a preferred document. It's only if they don't submit anything, that
Right.
if they don't submit anything, we will be very, very particular about why the zoning needs to be committed.
Well, and in
I
fact,
just-
if they don't submit anything, we could always consider whether or not we want to change our recommendation. Because we could only make a recommendation tonight based on the facts that we know. Okay, there's a possibility that this may come up. Committing it may make sense. If it doesn't come in as a special town meeting, we would still have the right to change our recommendation before town meeting. It's the warrant committee's recommendation that's published, not the planning board's. So, we have that option. We always have that option.
So that,
And I think you're clarifying what I'm
Right.
saying, and that is I have some reservations that there may be.
right,
I mean, you know,
I think we have the same reservations, which is the article as the article that is going to the annual town meeting as written does not provide the protections for the abutters. Absolutely, I completely
vote on
agree
it
with
would
that.
be unfair.
Yeah. That.
well, to do anything other than to
Send it back.
send it to the planning board for study. Yes.
Would it, not being an attorney, thank God. Sorry, Ned, but do you think, Mr.
Sometimes I
Dunn,
wish otherwise myself.
you both know what's going on. Do you think you two guys could just get together and take a little? I mean, this is what attorneys do anyways.
Certainly try.
Happy to.
Billable hours, right? Both of you.
I'm not paying for it.
All right, I
Just a
think
thought.
that,
Just a thought.
does that answer your question, Mike?
You have much more history with this than I do.
We
As long as
will-
you are certain that this won't slip through and get
This
voted
is
on.
not slipping anywhere.
Especially if the attorneys get
Then
together
like you said
now.
about Mr. Sheffield, I'm gonna vote on.
The merits.
More credentials and recommendation
All right,
and insight.
Okay, so that's the recommendation we have a motion for a recommendation.
So move that we recommend that this article be committed to the planning board for further study.
Second.
All right, we've discussed it, all in favor? Aye. So that will be our recommendations on this, and we look forward to hearing something positive in the future.
Right.
So that concludes.
Thank you for your time and energy with respect to this whole hearing on this whole process.
Well, thank you to all those who spoke.
Thank you,
both Brian and
everyone,
Don,
for
your time.
participating. This was a very good hearing. We've finally gotten to the town planner's report, which,
You sure you want to do that? You want to go right into,
Darcy's.
Read still.
wait, let's start signing that. While they're talking, let's
I'm gonna go get it.
let's sign we're going to sign the Women's Club addendum and plan, sign that final one. We've been signing plans for the Women's Club subdivision. Have you been given the signed
Yes, I gave them the Jeremy
to
copies.
Jean? Okay.
Bill, let me hit that pen.
The planning board, it seems to me we should authorize Bill to send a letter to the selectmen with the planning board's comments.
On the 40Bs?
Yes.
Okay, so Bill, when do you want the comments by for Randolph?
As soon as possible, I'm due to give a draft to the selectmen Saturday, which,
As in 2 days from now?
yeah, and I still have to talk to John Flynn and
We're going to
guessing
assume
it's gotta be the
by a
beginning of the
week
week.
from Saturday.
A week from Saturday?
On both of them? Well, get the comments on both of them as soon as you can, and then Bill will send them along to the selectmen. We don't need,
incorporate your comments into theirs. So.
they don't need to be, we don't need to, since we're not going to file a specific letter,
Okay.
then we don't need to sign a specific letter since we're not going to. What else do we have? Anything? All right. As soon as you're finished, we are going to,
Do we have a town planner's report?
yeah, well, Town planner, do you think you could go for a few minutes?
Sure. If we can go back to one of the comments that came up out of the master plan comments about healthy communities. I do know that 4 years ago now, just before Mrs. McGetrick got off the board, the town did send several people out to healthy communities training out in, I believe it was Southborough. Selectman McGetrick from the Board of Health, they sent the agent Mike Blanchard, the chairman Ann Fiddler, and the town nurse at the time, Carolyn Kinsella. Planning board sent Pete Jackson, and the youth worker, Vicky McCarthy.
And Vicky's still around.
Vicky's still around.
Yeah.
And I went too. I was the driver. 40Bs. We have two 40Bs before us right now, the one for Randolph Ave, the other for Hendry's. I've been coordinating the town's comment letters, dealing with the different department heads, getting the comments. The selectmen had a public meeting the other night where they took comments from citizens about the different projects. I have to take all those comments and cull them, put them into one document, and then get with Town Council John Flynn and come up with a letter for the selectmen. Under the Governor Stoughton development, I've been meeting with Pulte, the developer over there, and coordinating the due diligence efforts for their purchase and sale, dealing with the engineering plans per zoning, dealing with some affordable housing potential issues, dealing with some of the siting issues over there. Had several discussions with several developers on some sites that this board has seen, some other sites that haven't been, several sites that have been discussed, all of which development is, there's a lot of potential development here in town.
Would you like to highlight any?
Oh, that's great.
Put it on a map, Phil.
What would be great?
The Temple would like to take and come in on the first meeting in April, so they're ready, they're due to send me their stuff next Monday.
This is Marvin Gordon because
Marvin Gordon subdivision.
There's going to be no buildings on the plan. It is a subdivision of land, and it is not a, it's not a determination of use. It's a subdivision.
April, so what will happen
April 9th.
in that?
We'll get a subdivision
You'll
application.
get a subdivision application,
And then we'll advertise it for public hearing.
just like any other public hearing,
Just
2 weeks
like a
advertising.
Which it is.
Notification to the abutters within 300 feet.
And when will it be ready for signature?
That depends on the hearing.
Right.
And the hearing's gonna be the 9th?
The start will be on the 9th.
Bernie is saying that he doesn't want it to kick over into May because
Well, then we'll have to be super efficient.
he wants us to be super efficient. Exactly.
Right, Bernie, I think we can be super efficient, just for you.
We are a super efficient board.
That's it?
Done some stuff with the rink lately, too.
What about your assistant? When is she gonna come on board?
He, it all depends on town meeting, and it wouldn't be until after July 1st anyhow.
Town meeting has to vote on it.
Well, they could work for nothing, you know, for a couple of weeks.
Wow.
Just because the planning board works for nothing doesn't mean other people.
Exactly. I understand it's not a popular option these days.
All right, I think that that's, it's 9 o'clock. That's our appointed hour. Do I hear a motion?
Right here. Move to
Okay.
adjourn.
All in favor? We're adjourned.